Happy Monday morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. I'm John. I'm your host. Here we go with another long week. I gotta tell you, though, it could be a doozy. Got a lot of stuff kind of going on. So let's talk about it, shall we? All right, so I spend a good deal of time working around people. Not that I like people, not that I want to hear them, they're bullshit, but, we argue a lot. And I get it from both sides of the political aisle. People talking about how things are screwed up. Well, it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans, it's Trump. It's always Trump, right? But either side we talk to says, what's going on is terrible, it's horrifying, it's bad. And so I say, well, is shit gonna hit the fan? And they're like, oh no, you're a panicker, you're overreacting. And I say, well, what does it take for shit to hit the fan? And they go, well, it's got to be a lot worse than this. This isn't enough. How could this possibly be enough? And I thought to myself, and I've been thinking this a little bit lately, how can shit not hit the fan? How can it not? So this concept is kind of about a reverse logic, looking at things a little backwards, right? When I look outside, do I see broken businesses succeeding? Right? If I went to a store and they're selling items off the shelf for less than they paid for them, how are they going to stay in business? If everyone on my street wasn't paying their mortgage, how could they keep their houses, right? Essentially, I'm talking about deficit spending, not paying your bills, etc. The banks that make those loans, how could they stay in business? Right? Now, if every one of us was allowed to do what? To print our own money, how long would it be until the system was so wrecked, so absolutely wrecked, right, that it would collapse, that shit would hit the fan, right? Does a broken government serve its people? Right? Once again, we're looking at the reverse of things. We know what government's supposed to do. It's supposed to serve the people. We know that banks are supposed to take care of money. We know that people are supposed to pay their bills. We know that businesses, right, are supposed to make a profit so that they can continue to supply us with the products we want to buy. And so the question I have here is, do moral people treat each other well and fairly? The answer is yes. But when we look outside, when we watch the news, what are we seeing? We're seeing people treat each other poorly, unfairly. We're seeing the government treat us, the people, unfairly. We're seeing businesses treat us unfairly. And I'm not talking about your mom and pop store, your local store. I'm talking about major corporations. They're doing backroom deals with governments, foreign nations, and they're all out for the buck at the expense of everyone else. Wall Street traders, they don't care about you. Whether we're talking about a major firm or individuals, as long as they're making a daily profit that they can put in the bank, they don't care that they're screwing you over. So I ask again, do moral people treat each other well and fairly? Well, yeah. So I say, how can shit hit the fan today? Oh, well, it's because people aren't treating each other fairly. They're being immoral. They're being unethical. They're corrupt. They're thieves. That's the world we live in right now. So when everyone's complaining, they have a point. Things are really fucked up. But maybe the left and maybe the right both have it wrong. Maybe it just comes down to, being fucking decent. And there's only one way a system can work. One way, not the Republican way, not the Democrat way, certainly not the communist and socialist way. There's one way right? So how can shit not hit the fan right now? Because when Republicans are in charge, things are fucked up. And when Democrats are in charge, things are fucked up. So I want to say, or ask this question: does history have examples of unethical and bankrupt nations and empires flourishing? And people go, hey, shit can't hit the fan, John. Look how good things are. Really? I go, okay, well, let's look into history. What empires have flourished while they were unethical and unfair and treated their people like shit? Well, let's go back before the U.S. became the world reserve currency, and probably the last great empire was the English Empire, right? The sun never sets on the English Empire. Has it crumbled into dust? Well, no, it hasn't. Well, unless you count World War I and World War II, especially World War II. But by that time, by the beginning of the 1900s, the 20th century, the world really was united, right? Not the way we are today. It's not instantaneous. It's not internet connected, but it was still connected, intertwined to a degree that the prosperity of nations around it, right, kept the English Empire from absolutely crumbling. Or rather, the English nation. But the English Empire itself, where did it go? Well, all those nations, right, took over for themselves, took care of themselves, right, became free. Anyways, the English Empire was no longer the English Empire, it's just UK. Well, we can go back in time a little further. You know, what happened? How about the Spaniards? They were set to have a great empire. They didn't make it, though. Why not? You know, what really happened with them? Well, they were plundering the shit out of the Americas. You know, all the gold and silver. The Spaniards were incredibly powerful. They had the Spanish Armada, the greatest navy in the world. They were stupid. They acted stupidly, destroyed their fleet, and lost their chance for greatness. Now, all that gold and silver still found its way to Europe, but, right, they didn't treat others well. They were all about conquest and domination. What does that say about the people? Not that the Dutch and anyone else was any better, but what I'm saying is it's pretty obvious when you take a look. Spaniards didn't disappear because they were moral and good and decent, regardless of what the church was telling them at the time. So we want to go back in time a little further. You know, let's we can look at Islam, right? About 1000 AD, it was the most prosperous culture on the planet. It was the most advanced scientifically. Morally, it was good. It lived at peace with other religions. It was really an interesting time when you look at the greatness of the Middle East or the Arab nations. But they waned also and went away. And then if we want to go back to the big one, the big enchilada, we can talk about Rome. Rome came. What did they do? Well, they conquered the world. You think the world showed up, every nation state, and said, hey, Rome, we hear you got a great system. We'd like to participate. We'd like to participate. What we want to do is we want to give you all of our money, work for practically nothing, right? Submit to your iron-fisted, right, military threats, and we'll all just get along great. That's not how it happened. Rome used its military and financial might to conquer the world and take care of it, take advantage of it, rather, financially. That is what the Anglo-American Empire has done for the last, you could make an argument, 300 years, 400, but certainly the last 50, you know, or 80, back to World War II. U.S. hegemony really took off after World War II, right? Their control of money and wealth and the requirement to use our currency, the U.S. currency, around the world, right? Under threat of martial reprise if anyone dared to counter it. Very much like Rome. And third world nations, now called emerging markets, right? They've been exploited the same way Rome exploited those nations they conquered, right? In those nations, they had to use Roman currency and accept Roman law. But what happened to Rome? It fell. It burned. Shit hit the fan. That's what happened. Right? And it didn't happen overnight. It didn't collapse because of its weight. Right? It collapsed because it was fundamentally and universally unfair. The iniquity of it was just wrong. It was corrupt beyond belief. Right? Not only in those countries it operated in, but in its own capital city. It was full of perversions. Massive corruption. And what are we seeing today? What are we hearing about today? The perversions and corruptions of Washington, D.C., right? The complaints of it are reaching heaven. That's how many there are. Very biblical in a lot of ways, if you think about it. There is no way around this. Our nation, the U.S., and the entire system, and the entire world empire is falling right now. It's falling. The dollar is falling and failing, right? And how do we know that? Well, if the dollar was so good, if the dollar was so strong, why are every nation that holds it selling it? China and Russia being the two biggest. Japan also. The EU and all of its member states or member nations, they're selling bonds, treasuries. That's dollars. We could be days or weeks. They could put it off for years, maybe, if they really want to do massive printing here. But welcome to the Weimar Republic Part 2. Right? If they want to destroy the currency and destroy the nation, absolutely. There needs to be action to correct this so we get a shit-it's-the-fan light. But going back to the Rome analogy, they had the same problem. Same problem. They debased their currency. Their silver coinage became mostly junk metals mixed with silver. Yep, that's what happened. They did it then too. Right? The nations that they were pushing and holding down couldn't continue to even hold themselves up, provide themselves with enough food and wealth to live, much less pay tribute or taxes to the Romans. And back in Rome, like I said, they were corrupt. They're having lions and other predators tear political enemies and Christians to pieces in the Colosseum for the spectacle and entertainment of the people to keep them distracted. Bread and circuses. Right? They were sexually licentious and perverted in Rome. Right? And it's not just about the orgies. You know, who gives a shit if they're having a good time fucking each other? It wasn't the orgies, it's the absolute corruption and disgusting perversions that occur on a political level when there is no accountability. So if you want to talk about some of the disgusting things, I'm not going to because I don't feel like it at this time of day, frankly. But go look up Caligula. Go read about Emperor Caesar Caligula and others, but Caligula is a special one. And don't read it thinking it's made up or it's fantasy. Imagine everything that person did that wasn't recorded for history, that wasn't noted, that wasn't known. Right? And then you look at what is being accused of being done in D.C. Right? What's going on around the country with politicians and bureaucrats, as well as corporate bigwigs, big shots, quitting their jobs to go into hiding, to flee, right, to get out of the limelight and copping deals for all of their disgusting perversions, right? So I can't name a collapsed empire that didn't have that happen because they were good, right? Nobody collapses because they're fair and treating each other well and the government serving the people and the nations are getting along. Right now, every nation is dodging and weaving and trying to get its currency together, trying to get gold and silver together. Every nation is vying for a better deal, cutting independent private deals. Right? It's like the light has been shown on all the problems and everyone's freaking out and running for it. Right? Rome didn't burn the day they started acting corrupt. Rome did burn in a day. But what it took to get it there was decades and decades of immorality. We have had that here in this nation. Right? We have had it in this world. Decades and decades of theft of the people, the destruction of our rights, the immorality. And it's not just a little bit, because the more we learn about what is going on in this world, the more we really learn what the hell is going on. Right? Whether it's pedophilia or murder, right? Whether it's the military being used to fight our own military, our military used to train terrorists to carry out terrorist activity against our own allies, supposedly. There is nothing acceptable about any of those concepts. It is not statecraft. It is debauchery on a level that has only been seen a few times in known history. And if you think, right, a nation can stand, right, with this type of crap going on, you're mistaken. And certainly a world system can't stand. Not with this stuff going on. And it won't and it can't. Shit is going to hit the fan. So if I were to be able to talk to people and actually have this conversation, personally, one-on-one, I would say, is our system moral? Is it ethical? Does it obey the law? Right? And the people that are committing these crimes, whether they're politicians or businessmen, or whether they're religious leaders involved in all of the perversions, is it okay that they do what they do? And just because they can get away with it, does that make it right? And when we talk about morals, we talk about doing the right thing even when no one is looking. Right? Even when no one's paying attention. Even if you're not going to get caught, still do the right thing. That is the essence of what we don't have in this world anymore. Is people can get away with it, so they try and get away with it. Shit's going to hit the fan, folks. It's coming. Once again, this Q thing, it's out there. The QAnon. Is it real or not? I don't know. I don't tend to believe it, but there's always this great little bit of information or truth, or some leaks out of the Trump administration, or some leaks in Washington, or somebody has an inside look into the Department of Justice. Right? But it is corrupt. Completely. The politicians, the bureaucracy, even the justice system. It is so far gone, right, that I don't know what to expect, except to say that it's coming down. The whole system is coming down mightily fast. I am very glad that I have food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, a means of self-defense. I'm glad that I have a plan, right? That the people in my group, we are good. That my community is good. That I'm in an area that's solid, right? But there's a lot of places that aren't. A lot of groups that aren't, and a lot of people that don't have a fucking clue, but they're out there. And when shit hits, oh my God, there's going to be nothing but wailing and gnashing of teeth. So do your best to help people realize, right? How can shit not hit the fan? There's plenty of examples of it hitting the fan, so how can it not? Anyways, question of the day, huh? You guys have a great week. There's a lot of stuff coming. Lots of stuff coming. Keep your eye open. Chance favors the prepared mind is yours. I'm John. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your suggestions. We're going to do a live broadcast next Saturday. I'm going to try and get a couple interviews in with some people. I'm busy. I went off the grid this weekend, but busy, and more busy to come, right? When you're this close, or possibly this close, you got to be prepared. So stay frosty, semper fi, and Godspeed to everybody.